A week after Mayor Nadine Woodward issued her first veto, the city council voted to override her, and it's all over a device designed to stop loitering.
To turn this back to school into a political game is just irresponsible.
Strong words from the head of the Washington Education Association after the Trump administration threatened to withhold federal funding from school districts that don't hold in-person classes this coming fall. What else he's saying.
Plus, for the first time ever, the world's largest 3-on-3 tournament won't be held on the streets of downtown Spokane. What Hoop Fest is offering instead amid the pandemic.
It's heartbreaking, without question. We work hard for this weekend. And it's our job now is to get through this year so we can work hard for this weekend again in 2021.
It's going virtual this year. The event's website says it will take a break in its typical format after receiving guidance from the Spokane Regional Health District. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. I'm Regina Ahn.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Let's get right to that top story. This is a big deal for Hoop Fest. This is the first time in history the world's largest 3-on-3 basketball tournament will hold a virtual competition instead. Event organizers say this was due to the pandemic, of course. Instead of playing in person this year, you can sign up for their virtual event. That includes challenges, drills, and contests. The event's website says they'll be using artificial intelligence to make this happen. Hoop Fest is also allowing refunds this year. Brenna Green now joins us to talk more about what led to the traditional event's cancellation and what the virtual event will look like.
There's no doubt that this was a difficult decision for Matt Santangelo and company, but it became obvious to Hoop Fest that there was no way they could hold the event in its traditional format safely. I sat down with Matt right after news broke to discuss everything that went into the decision and everything going into the organization's plans moving forward.
Up until this year, my biggest nightmare was that we would wake up Saturday morning of Hoop Fest and I would have forgotten to order the basketballs.
Putting on Hoop Fest is a logistical nightmare, one that literally popped up in Matt Santangelo's, nightmares. Having to cancel the traditional event, though, that's something Santangelo could have never dreamt up.
I couldn't even dream bad enough to understand that I'd be the one to be involved in a year like this where you're having to make really, really difficult decisions. You're having to be innovative and creative at the same time.
Santangelo has said all along that Hoop Fest is an event that can only happen if Spokane gets to Phase 3. It became obvious to him that either Spokane would not be in Phase 3 or would be just getting into Phase 3 during the August 22nd weekend Hoop Fest had moved their event to. Canceling the event in its original format now felt like the responsible thing to do.
It got to a point where we wanted people to know, we wanted people to make decisions based off of being informed, and we thought now was the right time because it no longer looked like it'd be a possibility in August.
The event now moves to a virtual format that will cost $35 for youth participants and $40 for adults. Obviously, it won't be a 3-on-3 tournament, as that's impossible virtually, but will include a series of competitions and skill challenges that participants will compete in via an app on their phone or tablet from August 20th through the 23rd. And those coveted Hoop Fest champion shirts, they're still in play this year. The word just takes on a new meaning if you complete all of the virtual events challenges.
Once you complete those, you become a Hoop Fest champion. And I think this is a really important message because usually, you're competing for champions through winners and losers. Right now, we need everyone to champion our cause. So just by participating in this particular challenge or considering a donation if you've already registered is really being a champion for Hoop Fest 2020 because it's going to, again, help us to sustain until 2021.
Speaking of that,
are you concerned at all about your organization making it financially past 2020?
Well, yes. The short answer is yes. The long answer is I hope that people get behind this Hoop Fest home court, that come out and support us virtually. So yeah, I am concerned, but I also have great faith. We want Hoop Fest to be around for a long, long time. We want Hoop Fest to continue to do the great it does in our community. And in order to do that, we're going to need help in 2020.
Canceling the traditional format of Hoop Fest doesn't just impact Hoop Fest financially, it impacts a ton of businesses downtown. According to Hoop Fest's website, the event brings in $39 million annually to Spokane's economy.
Thank you, Brenna. Hoop Fest, by the way, has been a Spokane tradition for 31 years running, and it takes a lot of preparation throughout the year. Here are just some of the numbers. The event requires 14 miles of tape from Gonzaga to Green Bluff. Hoop Fest takes up 40 city blocks and parking lots close to downtown during the event. Normally, the event uses 422 basketball courts. The tournament uses more than 6,000 basketballs every year. 14,000 games are played over the weekend. That's about 33 games per court. It is a big undertaking. If you'd like more information about the new virtual Hoop Fest, just text the word Hoop Fest to 509-448-2000 and we'll send that link directly to you.
New at 10, the Spokane City Council voted tonight to override Mayor Nadine Woodward's veto of an ordinance that bans the use of devices that emits those high-frequency sounds, otherwise known as mosquito devices. Originally, council members voted 4-3 rejecting the devices, but the mayor vetoed this vote on July 2nd. The council needed 5 votes to override the veto. City Council President Brianne Begg says that the vote against these devices protects building owners and people who want to enjoy the downtown area. And new coronavirus numbers coming in from the Spokane Regional Health District. There are now 52 new cases today. That brings our numbers to 2,179 total cases. No new deaths have been reported. 25 people currently in the hospital. This comes just one day after we saw the highest single-day spike of 95 cases yesterday. We're also learning today that we're already seeing more cases in the first 2 weeks of July than the entire month of June. But now a Spokane health officer is saying huge delay in coronavirus testing results may be keeping Spokane numbers artificially low.
I can't emphasize enough the fact that because of the backlog in testing, we are seeing a backlog in case counts. So the numbers that I'm reporting today, I would share with you, may have been individuals who were tested a week ago, which means that they may have been infected 2 weeks prior to that. And so I'm still looking at times in June where potentially people were contracting the infection.
The testing backlog is an issue that many areas are now facing. The Spokane health officer says that this testing supply shortage is local as well as statewide. He says results are coming back 5 to 10 days after a person is being tested for COVID-19 in the county. And now to the Panhandle Health District. They're reporting a spike in new coronavirus cases in North Idaho. They're reporting 97 new cases today. That brings the total amount of cases to 854. No deaths have been reported. Currently, 8 people are in the hospital.
All right, let's switch gears for the moment. Talk the weather. We'll have to see if Spokane can hit 90 degrees perhaps this week, maybe even after that. Meteorologist Michelle Boss joining us now. Michelle, we got close on Saturday. I think the high was officially 89, and we may not get that hot again this week, right?
Yeah, it's going to be close again. We do have a couple of days of upper 80s in the forecast, but no actual forecast of 90 degrees or warmer for Spokane for this week. So let's take a look at some statistics here. The last 11 out of the 13 days in July have seen below average temperatures. That includes today. Of course, we only were in the mid 70s today. There are no 90s in the forecast next week, or this week, I should say. And right now, even early next week, it doesn't look like we would hit 90. And if we can make it until the 21st, without hitting 90, we could break a record for the latest we've gone without hitting that temperature. Currently 62 in Spokane, 57 in Coeur d'Alene, but already in the upper 40s in Deer Park. It'll be a cool night there, cool morning. Clear skies all across the inland northwest. We'll see temperatures fall into the upper 40s here locally in Spokane. Plenty of sunshine tomorrow. We will warm up into the lower 80s tomorrow, mid 80s on Wednesday, and Thursday it'll be close with the high of 88.
There is nothing in the data that would suggest that kids being back in school is dangerous to them.
Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos announcing that schools across the country should reopen in the fall despite concerns over the coronavirus pandemic. DeVos says it's for our future and implied the possibility of losing federal funds if it doesn't happen. State education leaders here say this is the wrong move. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos says schools need to get back to a 5-day in-person classroom.
How do we ensure that they get a full year plus of learning? They've fallen behind this spring. We need to ensure they're back in a classroom situation wherever possible and whenever possible and fully functioning, fully learning.
Washington Education Association President Larry Delaney is concerned about this message as coronavirus cases continue to rise.
There's more cases now than there were when school closed back in March, and that's certainly a concern. And the health and safety of our members, our students, and their families is the primary concern of ours right now.
DeVos says there's a lot of data that shows kids are not spreading the virus.
Kids have got to get back to school, and we can do that safely. And every community, every school can look at what their actual physical circumstances are and figure out ways to do this safely. We're doing it in many other areas of life. If we can get back in other areas of life, we certainly need to get back to school.
DeVos says where there are flare-ups or hotspots, schools can make decisions on a case-by-case basis.
Quite frankly, anything that Secretary DeVos has to say on this, I take with a grain of salt. She also suggested that 0.2% mortality rate among students was an acceptable number. And when you dial that out, that's 14,000 children who would die that Secretary DeVos says is an acceptable number. And so my question is, how many of those 14,000, if we were to go back to full-time school like Secretary DeVos is advocating for, how many of those are in Washington? How many are in Spokane? And what sort of student risk are we going to say is acceptable?
Right now in Washington, there's about 41,000 people who have coronavirus. In Spokane, about 294 people within the ages of 0 to 19 have coronavirus.
We have it within our means to prevent exposing students and educators unnecessarily.
Delaney says a little less than half of all teachers and staff are nervous about going back to class.
Is there a possibility for a shortage of teachers?
Oh, I think certainly there is. I think there's many educators who are looking at seeing what that return to school plan may look like. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we have school districts that are trying to force a back to brick and mortar school model. If teachers don't feel safe, we may have many educators who are just going to say, you know what, it's time for me to be done with this.
About a quarter of teachers and staff are in high-risk groups or above the age of 60. And Delaney adds the conversations are happening statewide about how schools will look like in the fall. The big takeaway, though, is that looking at our current situation with coronavirus, state leaders do not support kids back in a classroom full time. In the meantime, he says the plan at this point is to reduce staff, have more cleaning resources for staff, and checking students' temperatures before going into the classroom, and helping teachers with social distancing and other safety tasks. We know it's a lot of information here, but we're here to help you navigate through all the changes you and your students may see. For more information on what schools may look like in the fall, you can text schools to 509-448-2000 and we'll send you a link. Well, coming up here, Spokane being so close to Idaho can have its perks, but being in two different reopening stages can create some frustration. And before we go to break here, we had our verified team check these viral claims.
This viral claim says Congolese Dr. Denis Mukwege resigned from his country's COVID team after being ordered to declare any illness and death as COVID. Did this really happen? No. Dr. Mukwege did leave the COVID team and wrote an official release explaining that it was due to frustration with slow testing. This says nothing about false testing, and Dr. Mukwege publicly posted that these claims about why he left are not genuine.